Hello, my little weirdos. Um, on one of my previous videos in the last day or so, I had asked if anybody wanted me to read something I came across about Donald Trump, 1987, and his first trip to Russia, just going to Russia. And they asked a pee tape. Oh no. As deliciously scandalous that would be in the arena of those sorts of things, it's still early in the video, so be careful. But it was in this past last week or so, it was actually came out on Facebook. Let me read. And there's a lot of Russian names, so if I trip on them, I'm just trying to read this thing, okay? Like I said, not a PP tape, not even in that area. But oh my gosh, way more. Whoa. Y'all were hearing stuff about Elon being an asset or an operative? Sit down. Get some coffee, some tea, some iced tea. Get comfortable. If I mess up names, sorry. It didn't come from an intelligence leak. It didn't require a whistleblower hotline or a congressional subpoena. It came from Facebook. Within the past hour, Alnur Musayev, former head of Kazakhstan's National Security Committee and defector from the rotted Soviet apparatus, locked into Zuckerberg's platform and launched a guided missile into the global information void. Love the way it's written. The post is titled "The Evolution of Trump." Did you see it? I actually did see this. And that's why I went looking and I found this. Because I did see that post. And I was like, what? Because we've heard the name Krasnov before. The post is titled "The Evolution of Trump," but Musayev isn't charting a political career. He's unrolling a 40-year intelligence legend. Under the leadership of the first chairman of the KGB, Philip Bobkov, Musayev writes, a large group of top intelligence and counterintelligence officers prepared and executed the recruitment of Donald Trump and attributed him the pseudonym Krasnov. That's not a theory. That's end of quote. That's not a theory. That's an allegation of historic espionage posted publicly by name by a man who once sat at the apex of a post-Soviet security empire. He isn't whispering. He isn't hinting. He's dictating a classified history in real time. And then it gets weirder. In those years, KGB employees controlling Trump's operational activities affectionately called him Danila Krasnov among themselves. Danila, I think it's Danila, Danila. Danila Krasnov, not Donald, not the Donald. Danila. Like a Soviet fairy tale woodcutter who stumbled into a golden elevator and decided to stay. Let me pause here in my words. When I got to this part, I'm like, As stupid and as awful as he was in business, he's just a good con man. How did he fumble his way through and never get touched? Why was he called Teflon Don? This could be they were always hovering and protecting, maybe even without him probably even knowing, and fixing things for him so they didn't get compromised, the work they've done. I did, at that point, start thinking, I mean, that would make sense. How so many things were just brushed under the carpet with this guy. Why was he Teflon Don? He was called Teflon Don and Don the Con. Everybody knew he was illegitimate, but he still got away with stuff. How? Teflon, nothing stuck. If he had a handler always watching, that would make sense. I'm not saying that proves. I'm just saying, so far that, let's read more. Because that's where I got to be like, okay. According to Messiah, Trump wasn't some reluctant pawn. He was an enthusiastic asset, a narcissistic gold mine. He shared freely because he circulated among America's elite like a tacky chandelier at a state dinner. Makes sense, doesn't it? With all his bluster and boasting and braggadocious way he always has been. After the collapse of the USSR, the real Trump, Danila, emerged. Not the suave operator, but the bloated, bottom shelf version, greedy, crude, addicted to wealth and spectacle. Messiah writes that the SFB had to prop him up with complex operational combinations and huge financial costs just to keep him useful. That's exactly what I did at this point. I was like, go on. 'Cause I'm tracking you now, and go on. And that is when he changed. And he got really overly confident. Like, he knew he couldn't fail. Why? Yeah, Imagine the Kremlin accountants trying to justify line items for hush payments and golf cart motorcades. Imagine Putin's intelligence chiefs arguing over whether reality TV ratings counted as influence metrics. That's the kind of spy story we're living in now. And still, it wasn't enough to cut him loose. Again, I told you. The way those kind of people think of it is like, we've invested all this time and surveillance and money and handling and like a sleeper agent, maybe. They've done that with people that they've just put so much effort into, but they're either missed their time or they're waiting for the time, but they're like a sleeper, and they have a normal life, whatever, and they're only activated if and when that time arrives. And then their entire life they built does not take precedence. It's that mission, because that was before any of that happened. Kind of weird, right? Okay. It wasn't enough for them to cut him loose. Quote, today, Danila Krasnov is the main strategic resource of the FSB and Putin personally, Messiah claims. Strategic resource, not former asset, not relic, active asset. living monument, ongoing investment. And then Masoyev drops the part that sounds like prophecy, or maybe satire, or maybe both. Quote, in 50 years, Trump-Krasnov will definitely be the national hero of the Russian people, more revered than Stirlitz or even Alexander Nevsky. End quote. He will be the hero of our enemies. Let's just let that sink into you for just a wee tad, okay? In 50 years, Trump-Krasnov will definitely be the national hero of the Russian people. Let's decode that. Stirlitz is a Soviet spy hero, fictional. Nevsky is a Russian prince and saint, medieval. Sayev is saying Trump will outshine them both. Not in America. In Russia. They've built statues to the man who spray-tanned through 4 bankruptcies. They'll teach school children about his sacred mission to destabilize NATO and yell at dishwashers. Maybe they'll mount his red hat in a glass next to Lenin's brain. This is either brilliant performance art or Masayev is telling the most terrifying truth of our time. Let's be very clear. This is not a meme. This is not satire. This is not a rogue account or parody profile. This is Alnor Masayev using his real name and real reputation, publishing a real allegation that should have led CNN to break into regular programming and drag every intelligence expert they could onto live air to discuss this. Instead, crickets. This is probably the first time you're even hearing about this. The newsrooms that fed on the Steele dossier, that gasped over Trump's phone calls with Zelensky, that foamed over Comey memos and ketchup tantrums, nowhere. Still checking if Danila meets the editorial style guide. Let's face it, Masayev has posted a blurry UF photo. They'd have had 10 op-eds by now. But you say Trump was a Soviet asset named Krasnov, managed by Bobkov himself, and they blink like deer at a drone strike. In earlier reports, Masayev had posted a blurry, in earlier reports, Masayev's allegations were dismissed or buried. Snopes released a half-baked fact check that quoted anonymous blogs and Russian language sites with ties to Kremlin-friendly pundits. France 24 used their true or fake segment to slap a red X over Masayev's face and move on without investigating the meat of his claim. Now, they don't get to ignore it. In other words, when this was being said before the election, people dismissed it. Now what? Because today, Masayev added structure, history, names, operations, and a code name that reads like a death sentence for anyone who still believes this was ever just about money or ego. This isn't about kompromat. This is about legacy, strategy, and long term asset cultivation. I'm sorry, I really massacred that word. I'm sorry. Compromat. I'm trying to say it like they would say it. It's not about compromat, okay? And it's about the fact that a man accused of being a 40-year Russian informant is currently president of the United States. If Masoyev is lying, he's playing the most dangerous game imaginable. But if he's telling the truth, then we're not just living in a post-truth world. We're living inside the most successful intelligence operation in modern history, one built on vanity, greed, and the unkillable myth of Danila Krasnov. And no one on TV has the spine to say it out loud. I have not seen it on any legacy TV. Now I stream, granted, but I can get anything. I haven't seen it in any written form online. I haven't seen it by any of the mainstream media type things you see on YouTube or anything else. This Facebook was the only place that I saw this. And I'm just very curious, what about the rest of you? Is this the first time that you've heard this? The full part of it? And if so, what do you think? I mean, we've heard some of that. Like he said, prior years, some of it was told and it was completely brushed off. But he has said things that are absolutely investigatable. Because there's times and people, and it's absolute crickets, because he has intimidated them enough that they wouldn't dare break this and tell the public in general. So I'm just a teeny tiny channel, but you know what? Fuck them. I'll say it. I'll fucking say it. I did. And I'm just gonna title this Danila Krasnov, or Danila Trump Krasnov. And I do apologize to anybody that speaks Russian or knows the proper pronunciations of things, of the words that I had to read. I do apologize. I'm trying my hardest, okay? I was really trying to say it at least somewhat accurately. But yeah, I'm just really curious what you thought, because I was definitely like, go on. Yes, I've heard of that Krasnov, but I haven't heard a whole lot. Couldn't really read much about that when you'd look it up. Years ago, and that's why the minute I started reading that, I'm like, I was like, go on. Continue. I'm with you. Go on. Because there's always been a few things that just his first, and I mean 2 out of 3 wives are not even American, they're European women. That in itself is like, unless it's just that American women all around where he was knew what a scumbag he was even back then, as far as his morals, and what a lech and a stalker kind of guy he was. But I've always wondered, your first wife and your third wife, you just couldn't hang with an American woman, eh? I just find this very interesting, and I have wondered if I look up the name now, is there going to be more than there was? But it is. It's crickets. Who else have you heard this from? So, there you go. Danila Krasnov. Oh my.